2025 from Taylor brings a whole new model, a new shape, a new aesthetic, a new logo, an entirely new guitar, and we're going to tell you all about them. So stick around. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name is Chris McKee.
And I'm Cooper Greenberg.
We're here with Alamo Music in San Antonio, Texas, and you can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos. If you want to support the channel, you can visit our spring store link below for custom swag and check out our podcast, the Fretboard Confessional, wherever you get your podcasts. And incidentally, on that podcast, we will have an entire interview with Andy Powers talking about this guitar, really, the entire series of this guitar, which is called the Gold Label series from Taylor. We've got one of the first ones in our hot little hands here. It's debuting now for the 2025 NAMM show. It's pretty cool. We kind of knew about this guitar, but it's kind of coming to its own since we first saw it. So let's dig into it.
Yeah, I mean, you know Taylor out there, so doesn't this look like an 814 to you?
Nope.
That's an 814. I heard that's what this was called. This is the 814E Gold Label Koa. And this is one of 4 Gold Label guitars that they are releasing today. If you're watching this on January 22nd.
Mm-hmm. If you're watching on 23rd, it came out yesterday.
It came out yesterday. So this is the Gold Label Natural. There will be a sunburst with Koa. There will also be a natural and sunburst with Honduran Rosewood back and sides. Now the Honduran Rosewood is the one that we saw when we were at the factory.
Yeah.
And we were blown away.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and I really appreciate Andy. We had a great trip. You've seen some of the stuff that we've shot at that trip, but he kind of took us aside while we were there. It was good timing, and said, "I have a prototype of this new thing that I want to show you." It was pretty cool. A lot of people at Taylor hadn't even seen it yet when we got a chance in his workshop to take a look at the new guitar.
My question is, once you legally, because you were a lawyer for a while.
No.
He worked in the law profession. Once you sign an NDA, when the embargo date is lifted, is it still illegal to say that you signed an NDA?
No, I think you can say we signed an NDA.
We signed something about this, so we couldn't talk about it to anybody at all.
Not even people at Taylor. People are like, "Hey, what's that thing?" Oh, I don't know. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we had to sign something, but then if you're a fan of Reddit like we are, some cheeky cat went on Reddit with I believe the username Cajon Inside, and was like, "They got something big cooking, and it's totally different." And I was like, "Hey, I was supposed to be the one to leak this,
to tell all." Yeah.
So this is an entirely different guitar than an 814.
It is
almost every single way.
Yeah, and I have thoughts about the whole 814 moniker, but it's an auditorium. It's being called a super auditorium.
Yeah, this is bigger than a grand auditorium.
It's a little bit, and I watch the whole interview. I really pick Andy's brain about the guitar. Some of you can maybe appreciate this. Andy's a guitar builder. He's not a marketing guy. So sometimes you kind of have to draw from Andy, like, why'd you do this? And what's going on? But it is, to his description, it's following different lines. So it's similar to the Grand Auditorium, but it's following different lines. It's not exactly the same exact shape. So that's why they're calling it a super auditorium. It's a bit bigger. It's got a much bigger sound. And in ways, this reminds me of what was going on with the Grand Pacific. Mm-hmm. Andy has... And you can see this with the guitar. I'm going to say this here at the onset. I think a lot of the things with the aesthetics of this guitar echo what's going on sound-wise with the guitar. In which case, Andy, who for years before he was at Taylor was building his own guitars, but also repairing very expensive, valuable vintage guitars, has taken all of that knowledge, that love of that old music, and he has softened a lot of the initial attack and resonance that you think of with a Taylor, and created a really big sound with this new body, with new kind of a different take on what's going on with the bracing. And you can see this with like the softened bridge and the softened pickguard and the different headstock shape and all sorts of cool stuff. So
yeah, let's run through the aesthetic and construction things, because then you're gonna have to take some time.
Then we can get nerdy.
So this bridge, unlike other Taylors, this is a Honduran Rosewood bridge, ebony fingerboard, whole new pickguard shape, And this is like a 3-ply or a 2-ply, I guess, but you got ivoroid underneath and then the tortoiseshell over, and this is actually cut out, so
It's
it's
a
like
relief, yeah.
it's very cool. New fingerboard inlay. Do you know what that's called off the top of your head?
We talked about it, and I'm trying to remember. I think he called it Continental or something to that effect.
Wow.
And what was funny about it in the interview, he said it was because he saw an old car with that name drive by, and he was sketching it in Chicago or something, and named it that. So
That
there you
sounds
go.
like a Andy Powers fan fiction. So we always say single outboard bound sound gets you where you need to go. That's not even a thing. I mean, that's a big old rosette.
Yeah, it is.
Of abalone, ivoroid. You got some maybe like an ebony stripe. Or, it's a very multiply thing, but you do got the ivoroid bound sound.
There you go.
Love it. Ivoroid binding. Like I said, that's a great
Killer
set
koa.
of koa. Yeah, koa back and sides. And then new headstock, new logo.
New headstock, new logo. This angle, some of you will know, this comes from kind of like banjo, mandolin instruments. It's a cool look, and a different logo, which also Andy sketched. And so it's interesting. A lot of this, I think his approach was, if I had the resources I have now and I went back in time and I was doing some stuff, how would I do it? And so he hand drew the logo.
Yeah.
He hand sketched the inlay. Guy knows how to draw.
Go to a 510 ebony butt.
Yep. Ebony butt.
You got that ebony butt. So
do you shorten everything because instead of Cooper, I just call you Coop all the time? Is it just ingrained into you?
It's like a disease. It's one of those things. When we played this at the factory, we were both blown away. We heard Andy playing it first, and then we both got to mess around on it. The whole thing was, and this is extremely reductive to what this guitar is, but a big topic of conversation was, this is a Taylor that doesn't sound like Taylor to a certain extent, but I can't necessarily place what else I think this sounds like, because it's not really like a Martin sound. It's not really a Gibson sound. It's just a new voice for Taylor, and I really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think if Taylor's trying to design something that doesn't sound like a Taylor, I don't know that that's the best approach, because there's something that's in the DNA always that is there. Going back to that Grand Pacific introduction, one of the things that influenced those guitars and that build were old vintage guitars. But Andy had said something that I think is important. And when he was designing those guitars, he was going after a sound from a recording, not a sound from a guitar.
Yeah.
And so he did that with the knowledge that there's certain things that you kind of fix when you're recording an acoustic guitar, particularly those vintage guitars. And he was trying to design out some of those pitfalls, some of those flaws in those designs that might make a really good just acoustic sounding instrument, but then becomes a fly in the ointment when you go to record said instrument. I think with this, he is building something that is not necessarily antithetical to like a normal 814, but is definitely a contrast and complement. In the interview that you guys should watch, he compares them both on camera while we're talking, and it is a dramatic difference. I think there's still a lot of something from Taylor in there, but it's the initial attack of the instrument is different. That leading edge of the note is softer, it's rounder, just like the aesthetics, right? But there's a girth. There's kind of this woodiness that we usually associate with other guitars. But to your point, it doesn't sound like a Gibson or Martin. It does sound like it's been influenced from really old instruments like that, and probably others. And the thing that hit me when we were checking out the prototype, and I said it to Andy, you were sitting next to me playing the guitar, and I'm hearing it, and you sit next to me playing guitar pretty often.
Every day.
Usually what you hear is sound coming from a sound hole of a guitar. And in this guitar, it like comes from a different place. Yeah. Almost below the bridge, there is a resonance taking place that is atypical of what I usually experience.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hit you with two rapid fires and then one that you can take off on.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a black nut.
Nope.
is this V-class brace.
It is, but it's
breaking the mold.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think there's a whole move to a certain aesthetic with this guitar, so that's part of that, along with the ivoroid binding. I mean, you and I have spec'd enough guitars with Andy at this point to know that he really likes classic stuff.
Yeah.
You know, he likes ivoroid bindings and kind of old school things, and so I think that's part of it. But it's a modified V-class, which is just what V-class is for. This totally gets glossed over because traditionally, like when you're in the Martin world, you could talk about this version of bracing and then this version of bracing and then this version of bracing. And what's happened since V-class is every single guitar that's in their lineup, depending upon body shape and tone, which has a slightly different variation of V-class, and they don't talk about it at all.
So V-class bracing now, for the spec heads, 1 3/4, same carve, right? Same Taylor carve, or is it?
It's its own thing. Yeah.
So this is not, as you can tell by the lack of 3 knobs, but still an input jack.
Mm-hmm.
What's the pickup in this?
It's an LR Bags VTC element pickup, and I was surprised by that. And Andy said those work really well. They like that sound, and I also think that this is kind of a nod to maybe an area of the market that prefers different types of pickups. So.
Now the final thing, and we're talking a lot about this guitar because there's a lot that differentiates it from a lot of the Taylors that we talk about. You will hear it, but give me the scoop on the neck.
So this neck is not your typical Taylor neck. It's a new neck joint. My understanding is it's premiering in this guitar. It will probably end up going through things.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. But this is where it started, and it's an evolution. So Taylor's neck joint, which for years was called the NT or New Tech neck joint, and I guess eventually they dropped that because it wasn't new.
NT?
This would be the
new.
New Tech. That neck joint that we're familiar with now is 25 years old. It started right at the turn of the century in 2000. Incidentally, my old Taylor's kind of this weird hybrid. It was braced for it, but not milled for it, so it's got a classic bolt-on neck on it. But
it's the OT neck.
It's the old T neck, yeah. But later in 2000, those models all had the neck joint. So the current neck joint is a bolt-on neck joint where it has a pocket under the fingerboard, a pocket under the heel, with shims that can be adjusted in order to rotate the angle of the neck within 0.02 of an inch. And it's been a fantastic neck joint. It's ensured accuracy and adjustability over the life of the instrument, and was really kind of a huge departure 25 years ago from how acoustic guitars are made. This also has a bolt-on neck joint that is fully adjustable from within the sound hole, which is something we've also seen recently from FERC, but as we've talked about historically, manufacturers have kind of played around with this idea for a bit. So if you get one of these and you look inside, you will see the adjustment point. And while we were there at the factory, Andy took a very expensive kind of articulating screwdriver, but all it took was him reaching in there, and if I recall correctly, I think he does this even in our interview, he gives it a turn and he adjusts the neck angle right then and there. And so what this means is that you can dial in the neck angle geometry of your guitar to your particular liking on the fly.
It was seconds.
Yeah.
So.
And it doesn't look any different.
It does. Yeah. It's
great. You cannot.
There's no big old
tell. Yeah. If we didn't tell you, you wouldn't have known. It's you'd reach in, you look in there, and you go, oh yeah, it's a bolt-on. There's the adjustment, but or there's the anchor rather, but it's actually an adjustment point, and so. It's phenomenal. I'll tell you the other thing, that between this and what Martin's done with the SC bodies and what FERC's done with their guitar says to me is, for years, when people would say like, oh, a dovetail neck joint is the end-all be-all, of everything, and it contributes to the sound of the guitar. Yeah, I don't think.
The future is now.
Yeah, I just don't think that's true. I think it's what's going on with the bracing, having a good anchor, having a good neck, but not having it to be glued in.
Yeah. So we've got. Talk about contributes to the sound of the guitar. Everything on this guitar contributes to how incredible it sounds. Mm-hmm. I think all those things are very important to know. If you watch the interview, there's a lot more in depth. Because one of my first questions was why Honduran and ebony and not a match set. Andy Powers has a thought out answer for why he did everything on this guitar. Same thing with the Powers guitars. Every single part of that is designed to be exactly what he wants it to be. There is no stone left unturned on this guitar, and that would all be cool if it sounded like a normal guitar. I think this is a wonderful sounding guitar. So take a listen.
So there you have it. It's the 814E gold label, right? Super auditorium. And there are 4 models. Really, there's 2 models with 2 different finishes. And it's been designed with this particular thing. We saw the Honduran Rosewood because he's such a fan of it, along with the torrefied spruce top or koa. And you can get, it with a burst or natural. And it's a huge change from the typical Taylor sound.
It's an 814.5.
No cutaway.
Yes.
Not part of the design here. Probably won't be offered. Never say never, but by design. New headstock, new logo. It's really, it is designed to look vastly different because it is vastly different. So here's the question I have, and I want your take on this. Who is this for? Is it for the Taylor fan? Is it for the person that doesn't like Taylor?
Yeah. It's for both.
It's for both.
Because Taylor fans, people that don't like Taylor say that all Taylors sound the same. And I think when they say that, they're thinking of a 414 and 814 and maybe a 914. They're thinking of a spruce top rosewood back and sides GA. But if you put a K24 builders against a 322 12 fret, there's so much of a spectrum. Yeah. So for Taylor fans, this is just a new color added, and it's really fantastic. But I think that the sound is so drastically different that it's got to turn heads of people that aren't Taylor fans already. Mm-hmm. The aesthetic is Taylor, but it's different. If you look at first glance, it's Taylor, but there's so many different things. I think that it's nice to see Andy be able to do something that is more radically new while still having the heart of Taylor in it. I mentioned the Powers Electric. That's totally way out there. But if the footage that we shot is ever presented, which I hope it will be, all the hardware on that guitar, every single, the pickups, it's all machine.
How the veneer
there,
ties into the fretboard, like all of that's crazy.
So it's cool because in 2024 we got to see Bob Taylor come through with the legacy models and have this is old school Taylor, and then you've got builders editions, all this that's like kind of this perfect molding of classic Taylor, but Andy Powers new school. This is like a wildly different thing, and it is a home run to me. So I think for Taylor and non-Taylor fans, you can't ignore it. I think it's very cool.
There's something that Bob used to say often over the years, and he kind of said it when we were interviewing them about the Legacy collection, and that is he could be in a room full of dealers, and he would ask them to, show of hands, who prefers the Taylor tone as your favorite tone? You think they're the best sounding guitars in the world? And a few hands would go up. And he would say, okay, show of hands, Taylor guitars are the best playing acoustic guitars that you have. And all of the hands would kind of go up.
Yeah.
You'd have like 90 to 100% of the room versus maybe 30, 40, 50% of the room. And what that said to him is he had a thing that he could work on and be consistent about that would please pretty much everybody. And so for many, many, many years, Taylor's focus was on the playability and construction consistency of their neck. One of the things that I picked up on when we were hanging out with Ian and Andy is that those things have been dialed in. Now there's kind of an evolution of that, but it's really hard to argue that they aren't still consistently the best playing acoustic guitars on the market. Now, you maybe picked up on this when we were talking about them. Andy had a whole opinion about being able to quantify tone and the things that kind of go in there. It's still subjective. Yeah. Some people like some things and dislike other things, but there are things that you can change and nuances that you can bring in, or dramatic changes that you can do to change how a guitar responds, how much sustain it has, the emphasis on different frequencies. And like I like to say, it's hard to describe in words, but the leading edge of the note, most Taylors have a very pointed leading edge of the note, and that we call articulate. And you go to a Gibson, and it's kind of on the other end of the spectrum, where it's a very blunted leading edge of the note. We call it lo-fi, kind of a thickness. And there's guitars that hang out in the middle. And I think this is massaging that more toward a vintage sound, where that leading edge is a lot rounder, and there's a richness in the mid-range that maybe people have been wanting with great playability. So I agree. I think if you are a Taylor fan, this represents a great evolution in the lineup. And if you have not liked Taylor guitars, you really need to pick up one of these guitars and try it.
Yeah. It's January 15th, the day that we're shooting this video. Remind yourself, in 11 months, I guarantee, unless there's a million amazing guitars that get released, I bet this will be in both of our top 5. This is already kicking off the year with a brand new, incredible guitar. But I'm going to go out and say it. I think, with the release of this guitar, I think this is my favorite Taylor right now. That across the whole line, if I was going to go buy one, I'd buy this guitar, and I think it's the best sounding Taylor.
Do you like the Koa or the Rosewood better?
It's tough because
we haven't compared them.
We haven't compared them. We played the Rosewood at the factory. We played the Koa here. I thought 100% I was disappointed when we opened it up, and I was like, oh, we got a Koa one. I really want to play that Rosewood. I would take the Koa. Based on right now, I'd take this guitar.
It's a great sounding guitar.
Yeah. But the Rosewood, then we'll get a Rosewood and we'll do a comparison. Then I'll make the call.
So here's what to expect. It's a new guitar. It's launching. There's not going to be a whole lot available. So if you are excited about it, you want to make sure that you get in line, pre-order, communicate with us of what you prefer with both the wood selection as well as the burst or the finish. And we'll get one to you as soon as we possibly can. These are going to be on order, but it's what always happens at launch, right? They're just there's going to be fewer of them available.
And they're
at
not
launch.
they're not a limited release.
Not a limited
This
release.
is
That doesn't mean you should drag your feet, but not
Yeah,
a limited release.
it's a they're gonna be hard to get, but they'll be in the line. So
Yeah.
there we go.
So let us know what you think about this guitar, what you heard it from Cooper's playing, as far as the sound that you can get from YouTube. And if you are or have not been a fan of Taylor guitars, what you think, just overall. I'd love to hear y'all's opinions. I'm sure Taylor would love to read about them as well. And again, you go to our website, which is
alamomusic.com.
perfect. And if you're new to our channel, you want to subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos, like I said before, and keep coming back and share them with your musician buddies. Post it on Reddit or Facebook or whatever, because it helps the algorithm get it out there. And we appreciate that. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.